Dear students, welcome to DCE's Digital Learning. Today in this session, we'll try to understand or introduce ourselves to the chapter titled The Last Leaf prescribed for first semester BCom Language English. I am Nandana NG, Assistant Professor of English. Let us have a look at the contents of this session. The contents are as follows: learning objectives. What are the objectives that the student will learn in this session? The session will focus on a few objectives in particular to introduce the student to understand what exactly a short story is. What the session outcomes? What will the student take back with him after this particular session? So previous knowledge is always very important because reminiscing or remembering previous knowledge will help us to understand the present and also help us to understand the future concepts in a much better manner. Then we'll proceed to introduction to the lesson, wherein we'll focus on the important points of the lesson, and then an introduction to the author will follow. Introduction to the author is also of utmost importance because author's background always throws light on the educational qualification, the social context, and the society in which he was working or in which he was raised, because the those things are reflected in his works, his or her works for that matter. And last, multiple choice questions. After the entire session, the multiple choice questions will gauge the knowledge accumulated by the students through simple multiple choice questions, which will assess how much the student has understood through this particular presentation. Okay, what are the learning objectives of this session? First and foremost, to acquaint with short story as a literary genre. Genre means a type of literature, like how poem, prose, poetry, likewise short story is also known as a genre of literature. So the main objective of this session is to acquaint, to make a student familiar with short story as a literary genre. The student will also be able to develop an interest for story reading. Yes, everybody loves stories, but then this session will focus more on a short story in particular so that the student will develop an interest for reading more stories of multiple authors. In turn, this will also better develop their functional writing skills. If there are any amateur writers there, those who are interested in having their writing as a career as such, this particular session will help you improve your functional writing skills and your stories will be much better. Will also help to display experience writing creatively in the medium of the short story. Maybe you are already writing short stories, but then this particular session will also help you to write those short stories in a much creative manner. It will also help to enlarge the imaginative power of the students. If you have read stories before, you will realize as you're reading, you enter a different world. So short story for that matter will increase your imagination. You can imagine your characters, you can imagine the setting, you can imagine the action as it takes place. And last but not the least, it will also expand interest for language learning. Remember, language and literature are not two different realms. In fact, they are considered as two different sides of the same coin. Both are absolutely necessary. The session outcome: at the end of the session, the students will be able to improve their vocabulary, the word power, and even fortify. Fortify means strengthen their linguistic skills. So not only do you get to understand the story much better, but it will also improve your vocabulary and word power. You will be able to read, understand, and appreciate the range of text. You'll be able to recognize the elements of the story. This is the most important thing. We listen to a lot number of stories, but then we never tend to understand that there are actually elements of the story that we shall also see here. The student will be able to appreciate the relationship between life and art. The sentence seems very simple, but then it is loaded with meaning because life, as we know, is definitely related to art. Without art, there is no life, and without life, art cannot survive. The student will also be able to recognize the elements of a short story. The student will be able to analyze a variety of short fiction at college level. Yes, as this is the first semester, this is the introductory session, but at the very beginning, you are introduced to this short fiction, which maybe it will kindle an interest as such, and you will also take to novel reading at the later stages. It will develop their functional writing skills and write creatively in the medium of a short story. As I said in the beginning, while describing the content slide, the recap of previous knowledge is very important. Now, there are a few questions here on the screen. We shall go through each question. Consider these questions as something you ask yourself. These are not testing questions, as in the exam you will not be getting such questions, but these questions are to be answered. And remember, there is no definite answer for these questions. First, what is to be cured, the body or the mind? Please understand the question, what is to be cured? Cured means what needs to be given medicine, what needs to be taken care of, the body or the mind. When I say body, I mean the physical body, the mind as in the mind and the mental capacity. So what do you think is very first and foremost, before we try to answer the question, let us try to understand which is important, the physical body or the mind. By now you would have understood both are very important. A body without a mind, or only the mind without any physical body, is completely useless. Both are absolutely necessary for the pure functioning of an individual. So in that sense, if a person falls sick physically or mentally, what needs to be cured? Is it only the physical body, or even the mind needs to be taken care of? That, please hold the thoughts that we shall ponder later. The second question, is literature a mirror to life? Look at the two words there. You can imagine an arrow, and on one side, the word literature can be seen, and on the other, life. Literature, Sahitya, life, Jivna. Do you think literature and life are like mirrors to each other? Yes, obviously, because whatever we see in literature is nothing but a reflection of life, and what we see in life is reflected in literature. When we read those stories, or when we come across those news articles which sounds too strange or bizarre, we think, does it really happen in real life? Yes, it does happen. It is not fiction, but it does really happen, and that is why it is reflected in literature. The third question, head or the heart? This, I think, this dichotomy can be seen in many major literary pieces. What is more important, the head or the heart? Jane Austen, a popular novelist of Britain during the 18th century, had written a novel by the name Sense and Sensibility. It can also be considered for this question whether sense, as in the head, or the heart, sensibility. What is most important, the thoughts, the mind control, or your feelings or your passion? But then, in any situation for that matter, we cannot think exclusively through one element. You cannot be clearly saying that, oh, I'm only going to rely on my thoughts, or you cannot say, no, I'm going to give in to my passion and I'm going to take only emotional decisions. No, every situation requires you to, in fact, analyze all the context and use both your head and your heart. But there are certain situations wherein you really do not know whether your head is important or your thoughts are important, or the heart will take a important role. Next question, is art significant in human lives? Obviously, as the first three questions we have answered here, art or whatever comes under art there is definitely significant in human lives. In fact, art can be considered as a storehouse of our human lives. Whatever we see in art, it could be music, dance, painting, sculpture, you name it, even sand art for that matter, is definitely significant, because those are the medium through which human beings are able to express or live their passions there for that matter. The last question, I personally like this question. Do you believe in miracles? Miracles as in Pavada. Share your experiences. Well, I do believe in miracles. Maybe you're too young to even recognize whether a miracle has happened or not. But let me assure you one thing, miracles do happen. And miracles happen when we least experience it. So look at all the questions here. We can see that they are all related to something of the heart, mind, art, miracle, etc. So it is very obvious that these are the things which are going to be reflected in the lesson. Introduction to the lesson. Look at the title photo there, The Last Leaf. It is a short story by O. Henry. Now, The Last Leaf or through this presentation, we'll have an endeavor. Endeavor is nothing but an attempt to understand short story as a literary genre. There are different types of stories. Short story can be considered a miniature form of a novel. That would be the simplest way of explaining it. In fact, in this lesson, the most important thing or the short story will focus on the positive attitude in life. Yes, positive attitude in life and how important it is for an individual to survive in this world. We will also see in the lesson the concept of how life and nature are synonymous. Synonymous means equal. How life, jivana, nature, prakriti, they are synonymous, and how without both a person cannot survive. The lesson also highlights the themes of selflessness and the supreme sacrifice of self to save the life of another human being. Yes, this particular story concentrates on the theme of selflessness. Living for ourselves is common, but living for someone else, and when you do that sacrifice with no expectation, then the reward can be seen not by you, but the reward can be seen in the other's life, and the other person is happy. It also explores the loyalties of a true friendship. So we can see the various themes that are there in the lesson, and we can also see how Mother Nature is a teacher, or you can also consider as a healer. In literature, there is always seen there is a infinite or something, a bond kind of a thing between life and nature. uh, in Kannada Sahitya for that matter, Prakriti Mate. In fact, nature is always personified as a woman, like Mother Nature, like how a mother would do. When you do a mistake, a mother knows how to correct you. Likewise, Mother Nature also, she knows how to put us in a proper place. So, how an individual is impacted by Mother Nature and how Mother Nature can elevate our mood and also help us to learn certain difficult lessons in life. First and foremost, as I told you in the beginning, we'll try to understand what is a short story. So this is the exact definition of a short story. A short story is a piece of prose fiction that typically can be read in one sitting and focuses on a self-contained incident or series of linked incidents with the intent of evoking a single effect or mood. Or simply said, a short story can be read in one sitting, and it will focus on a few incidents, and the entire thing will come to a amalgamation or a conclusion, and the conclusion will make sense, as in the conclusion all the pieces fall into place like a zigzag puzzle. Entire thing falls into place, and then immediately your thought process changes. It might be a short story, in fact a short story as short as maybe 10 to 20 lines there, but then the story changes the way you think, because short stories have that power to impact us when we least expect it. As I have told you, always author's background or trying to know more about the author is very important, because only when we know who the person is, who the creator is, and what exactly was his thought process while he wrote that particular literature or the piece of art for that matter, then we can understand the literature in a better context. The Last Leaf is composed or written by a writer by the name of O. Henry. A few points about him are given there. Now this is his image that's displayed there on the screen. William Sidney Porter. Immediately you must be wondering, what is it? It says there O. Henry and here it says William Sidney Porter. Yes, William Sidney Porter, born 1862 and died 1910, is an American short story writer who used the pen name O. Henry. Yes, this is the most important thing that you have to remember. Many writers always used pseudonyms, pseudonyms as in a different name, a false name. When a person does not want to reveal his original name, they resort to a pen name or a pseudonym. So here in this case, the original name of the author or the American short story writer is William Sidney Porter, but he used the pen name O. Henry. So most of his literature can be read under the pseudonym of O. Henry. Why exactly did he do that? The second point clearly answers that question. While in prison, he began writing short stories in order to support his daughter, Margaret. We do not know much about the reasons as to why he went to prison, but when he went there, he realized his daughter His young daughter Margaret, who was outside, required financial assistance. He didn't have any other trade, or he did not have any other talent as such except writing for that matter. So he began writing short stories in order to support his daughter Margaret. He did not write for fame or for himself. He did it so that his daughter Margaret could get some financial assistance. His first published story, Whistling Dick's Christmas Stocking, came out in 1899. He has written nearly 600 short stories. In fact, O. Henry's short stories are much in demand all over the world. Most of his short stories are translated into various languages all over the world. He has written more than 600 short stories. The last point is very important. What are the characteristic features of O. Henry's short stories? O. Henry's short stories are known for witty plots. Plot as in the main crux of the story or the main element of the story. Wit, wherein a lot of dialogue, verbal emphasis is given there. Surprise endings, as in the entire story takes us in one way and you will be presuming the conclusion is going to be such, but when the ending does happen, the reader will be definitely surprised. In fact, O. Henry is known for that. Warm characterization of awkward and difficult situations. O. Henry had the ease, he had the talent, he could describe any awkward or difficult situation in his writing, but the way he did it, the reader tend to have the warm feeling when he read that particular situation. So the most important things about O. Henry is his original name is William Sidney Porter, and he is an American short story writer. He uses the pseudonym or pen name O. Henry. While in prison, he began writing to support his daughter Margaret. He has written nearly 600 short stories, and most of his stories are known for witty plots, surprise endings, warm characterization of awkward and difficult situations. So let us just go through the entire thing. Let us sum up or recapitulate, or again try to summarize the points there. So what is it that we learned in this session? We saw, or we tried to define what is a short story and how short story is a one type of a literary genre. William Sidney Porter, born 1862 to died 1910, is an American short story writer. And what is his pen name or pseudonym? Please remember O. Henry. O. Henry has written nearly 600 stories about life in America. No wonder, as I told you, as he was born in America, so most of his stories revolve around life in America. O. Henry was known for wit. Wit is nothing but the verbal interaction or the emphasis on dialogue, clever wordplay and clever twist endings. This clever twist endings is a characteristic feature of O. Henry. We can also see that psychosomatic problems can be cured by treating the patient psychologically. Yes, this is the first time we are listening to this here. Psychosomatic problems are problems related to the mind can be cured by treating the patient psychologically. This O. Henry has depicted in his short story. It will also, the short story also help us gain better empathetic understanding of human relationships. It focuses on human relationships and we get to have a better understanding of the various human relationships. And also that sacrifice is very important, and sacrifice not for ourselves, sacrifice not to feel good, but sacrifice for the sake of others' betterment. Test ourselves based on this particular session. A few questions, multiple choice questions. As multiple choice questions suggest, a question will be provided and 4 choices also will be provided. You just need to assess yourself with the correct choice. What was O. Henry a pseudonym for? We have seen it very clearly in the introduction to the author. O. Henry is a pseudonym and it was used by whom? William Sidney Porter. He is an American short story writer who used the pseudonym O. Henry. The second question, what were O. Henry's short stories best known for? A few options are given here. Unusual names, crude jokes, ironic plot twist endings, relating real events. Yes, in the very detailed description that we heard, we came to know that O. Henry's short stories are best known for ironic plot twist endings. As I told you, it is always surprise endings of O. Henry that is very famous or popular for. The entire story takes the reader in a one track, and at the end, at the conclusion, the reader is not shocked. He's usually surprised. It's a pleasant surprise for that matter. How many stories has O. Henry composed? 300, 200, 600 or 100? And the answer is 600 stories are composed by O. Henry. Why did O. Henry start composing as a writer? I told you while he was in prison, he started writing. He did not write for fame nor for himself. He started writing for his daughter because he wanted to support his daughter Margaret. He wanted to provide her financial assistance. The Last Leaf, composed by O. Henry, is a poem, novel, drama, or a short story. This is very evident here that short story is a sorry. The Last Leaf is a short story that is composed by O. Henry. In fact, it is one of the most popular short stories composed by O. Henry. The references. Thank you.